This is episode 229 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Control and Compound Financial. They teach real estate investors how to multiply their wealth using infinite banking strategies. For a complimentary wealth coaching session or to learn more, visit www.controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines. Welcome back to the show. Today I have Amy Brooke with me, and Amy is a real estate investor who's originally from England, and she made her way over to Ontario many years ago and decided to go full bore on the real estate investing, acquisition, and brrrrs in 2020, and she acquired 7 properties in a row. 7 properties within 1 year, which to me sounds absolutely insane when you were just doing, a little property here and there. She had a property in England, was never really much of an active investor, and then just went full at it while retaining her full-time job and with a 2-year-old. And her husband also worked full-time. So, that just sounds insane to me, mind-blowing. Anyone with kids who listens to this show will know how insane that sounds. And this episode was really just breaking down what was she thinking, number one, and what she's learned, how she's moving forward after this, and what a cool portfolio she was able to put together and how she did that. So it was a really interesting episode, which I came away from just thinking, wow, there really are no excuses, are there? I don't think I've heard too many people talk about growing that quickly. Of course, after she did buy the 7 properties, which is over 20 units, I think she said when she's done, or maybe just under, sorry. She said she did cool it down a little bit. They wanted to reflect and decide how they were going to grow from here. But definitely an interesting story, and one I'm sure you're going to get something out of. So just before we jump into that, I'm going to remind you about the REI Hot Seat sister channel to this one. That's where you can go if you want to see me breaking down deals on a weekly basis, giving market updates. It's YouTube or video content only. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. It's something that can really help you with the analysis on deals. And of course, you're going to hear about some actual available deals, whether on market or off market, with our resident realtor, Jacob Campanero, who's regularly on the show. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into episode 229 with Amy Brooke. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Amy Brooke on the show. Came out to a meetup, said you wanted to come on the show.
Yep.
And here we are. Yeah, here we are. After a little back and forth trying to find a time to get you on. So anyways, you have a lovely accent.
Thank you.
That's Southern Ontario, is it? Or
I don't even notice it anymore. When people say, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm like, Canada. Oh yeah, I've got an accent.
How long have you been here?
11 years, 11 and a half.
Yeah.
Coming up to it.
And so where in UK are you from?
Near Leeds, a little town just outside of Leeds.
Okay, so that's
Manchester.
Like southern, yeah.
Like
UK,
it's north,
England.
kind of about 3.5 hours north of London.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like their accents are just so region specific, right? Like somebody from there would know where you're from, right?
Oh yeah. The town I'm from, you'd really recognize my accent. Yeah. But literally 15 minutes drive out and you've got a totally different accent.
Yeah. So, but if you go back to your town, do they say you have a Canadian accent?
No. So they used to a little bit. Maybe not Canadian, but I definitely kind of
sounds different.
Flattened it out a little bit. They said I sounded a bit posher, which is quite funny. Being from the town that I'm from. But I work for a UK company now, so it's kind of all coming back.
Oh, really?
I'm really broad English accent again now. So
very cool. So what brought you over here?
Oh, God, I can't remember the exact reason. We was working for a company, and they were closing down, so we thought we want a new adventure in life. Started looking into it. I think we were looking into Spain at one point. We ended up at one of these, like expo things where there's different countries. Somebody talked us into Canada. My husband's best friend lives in New Brunswick, so we had been over a few times, and we're like, oh, that makes sense. So we started. It happened really quick and got us permanent visas. Planned on settling in Nova Scotia, and then I got a job working down here with the company I was at. So they kind of moved us down into Ontario. So. We stayed in Nova Scotia for about 5 weeks and then packed up our car with the dog and everything. Didn't even have anywhere to live down here and just came down and tried to find somewhere. It all happened really quick. And been here ever since. So
that's crazy. So tell me a little bit about your journey as well, actually, even before that, like, what have you noticed? Because you spent some time as an adult in UK, came over here. You were working towards a visa over here. Is that how that worked?
No, we got a permanent visa before we actually came.
Got a permanent visa. Is that based on qualification for job?
It was through the Nova Scotia Provincial Nominee Program at the time.
Okay.
So I'm an accountant, but it wasn't on the skilled worker list at the time.
Okay.
So Nova Scotia was the easiest place for us to get into.
Just interesting to me. Like when people come to Canada, I genuinely want to know. I mean, because you kind of have similar weather probably where you came from.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. You get like more of the seasons here.
More of the seasons.
It's kind of grey and a bit rainy a lot longer in England, whereas it's clear seasons in Canada.
Yeah, clear seasons.
Maybe not Nova Scotia.
We do have the gloom. I don't know, the winter gloom. I'm done with all that, but
me too a little bit, to be fair.
Need to go down to like Florida or something. Like any reason, like Spain would have been warmer, more seasons. Probably.
Yeah. We went back to Spain. We only got back 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, and
we kind of miss that now. We want to buy something there.
So now, like, are you thinking Canada for the rest of your life, or move around?
Move around.
Where would the next place be?
Probably Florida.
Florida, yeah. It's a good spot for warmth. I mean, I think Florida for sure for me, at least for like winter months. Yeah. And then I wouldn't mind somewhere else in the U.S. for the rest of the year. Or I do like Southern Ontario, and I think we have beautiful summers, minus the smoke right now. Mm. But I could also, it's just families here, right?
So we've not got any family here. We've got friends here. The challenge that we've got is we've got a 4-year-old little boy. Mm-hmm. And with no family here, like, is with us all the time. And I'm just not sure what to do for schooling with him. Yeah. Whether we do
that is the trick, right?
Or private school, or, a
lot of people in our space want to move their kids around. So I know a few people, Sean Allen, Paula McFarland, and Jake, they have moved their kids. I believe they're all having their kids schooled in Florida.
Yeah. And I've been following them a lot. Yeah. I've chatted to her once before, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like some kids are easygoing with that stuff. Yeah. And I feel like some aren't. But yeah, I got moved around in schools when I was younger, but I think it's more the quality of school you move your kids to, more so than that you're moving them.
Totally. I got moved around a lot as well, and I honestly look back now and think it made me more adaptable.
Probably did,
I'm open to it. I don't know, I'll figure it out. We've said that probably in the next couple of years.
Next couple of years you make a move. So so if it's Florida, you'll be going down the visa route?
Probably.
Not and like using your Canadian citizenship to make that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And does your son have an accent as well?
He has a full Canadian accent, but he can easily turn on the British English? Yorkshire accent where we're from. It's quite funny.
Yeah. You should get a video of that.
Yeah. It's quite funny.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, let's talk about real estate then. Yeah. So you came over here. Did you get into investing right away? Give me the timeline.
So, just going back to the beginning, when I was 19, I bought my first house in the UK. Mm-hmm. And luckily, my mum always pushed me to buy a house straight away. She was like, don't bother renting. At the time, it made more sense to buy a house. And they were super cheap back then. 3 years later, I sold that for double the price. But then with the next one, I got into bidding wars and I ended up buying something that needed a full gut job. So that taught me a lot about it. I got ripped off by contractors and nice. It all started then.
Good experience.
Then, good experience straight away at an early age. Yeah. Then I met my husband and he helped me finish the house. When we met, we decided that we wanted to buy an investment property. So we actually saved up for a year, ate beans for a full year, didn't go out anywhere. And we'd just been over to Canada. He introduced me to Canada because we came over to Fredericton and Nova Scotia to meet his friend. And that's when we thought, we're going to buy something in Canada. So we actually opened a bank account and started saving for a year to buy something here way back then. This is like 2005, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
And randomly, we didn't end up doing. We ended up buying another primary residence in the UK, and we rented out the one that we had. Rented that out for 13 years. Didn't have a clue what we were doing. We had great tenants for a long time, and I think we only increased the rents once. And then we moved over to Canada, kept that one on. So we didn't I always loved real estate. I always wanted to kind of get into it, but just never dived in and actually learned it. And life happened. The one thing that we did always do was every 3 to 4 years, we'd buy a new primary residence that needed some work, and we'd add value that way. So we'd kind of, built up some equity in the properties that we owned. When we came over to when we originally came over to Nova Scotia, we thought we could, afford a nice house, and then we came down to Ontario and realised that was going to be challenging. And this was back in 2012.
Well, you're converting your pounds. Surely they went a lot further.
And it went a lot further in Nova Scotia as well. But we eventually got on the property ladder in February 2013. And then we're in a third house now. And it wasn't until my dad passed away in 2020 that just gave me the kick up the butt to be like, I need to get into this and learn more. It's usually one of them big kind of life changes that shakes it up a bit. And then we realised we could use his HELOC, and we'd accumulated a decent sized HELOC. So we bought our first. We did a lot of learning, put a lot of offers in, got a lot of rejections. We bought our first duplex in January 2021.
And which area?
That was in St Mary's, just outside of Stratford. Okay. We were actually looking in Kitchener, Cambridge, but we were just kind of getting outbid all the time. So we fell in love with St Mary's, found something. It was the first week in January, and then we found another duplex, and we bought that literally 5 days after the first one. We ended up buying 6 properties in 6 months, and 7 properties in 10 months in total, and that's kind of where we stopped. And then last year,
they were all needed work.
We were using the BRRRR strategy on all of them. Yeah, nothing turnkey.
So you didn't have anything else to do with your time? How did you do that? Were you working full time?
We were working full time. It was tough. We dragged our little boy, who was 2 at the time, around everywhere. We put a lot of sweat equity in every weekend.
That's crazy. I can't imagine bringing my son just about anywhere productive. I take him to Home Depot and I'm like, wow, what a success.
We did he ate a lot of snacks. Yeah. Probably ate a lot of crap. He's probably addicted to a lot of them. Yeah, he's probably addicted to the iPad now, but whatever. Yeah. So we kind of sacrificed that a bit. We always tried taking him to a park or something wherever we were.
Well, the experiences would be great for him, especially if he could help out, get some junior sized hard hat and work boots.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
we had him painting as well. Yeah. We've got lots of it was fun, and I think I don't know you have to sacrifice, and we did. That first year, we were exhausted by the end of the year, and we did get burnt out. I don't know whether I'd recommend people going that quick. Well,
yeah, I mean that sounds kind of horrendous. 10, you said?
No, 7 in 10 months. Yeah.
7 in 10 months, and they all needed work. So you're bouncing back and forth from property to property.
Yeah. At one point, we had 6 units being renovated on the go, and we were running around from one.
Yeah, how many units out of those 7 properties?
So we have 17 units in total now, and that the reason is so one of them, 2 of them, we converted from duplex to triplexes. So last year
you were going through municipal permits as well.
Yeah. So last year we stabilized. We had one Airbnb. We got that up and running, and then we did a lot of refinancing last year. And then we did 1 duplex to triplex conversion. We finished that in December last year. Then this year we've just finished a garden suite conversion. So that's a legal triplex now, that property. And now we're just doing a duplex to fourplex conversion. We've got that going on now. So out of the 7 properties that we bought, we knew that there was room to add units and add value. So it's kind of kept us.
So you'll be over 20 units then soon?
No, it'll be 17, including those 2. Yeah. So and it's an old church, that one. That's going to be the fourplex.
Oh.
So yeah.
Interesting.
It's kept us busy. So it felt like there were a lot going on that first year, and it felt like last year, I don't know, we were really hard on ourselves, because we didn't buy anything else. It felt like we weren't moving, but we were stabilizing, and we're still kind of doing that a little bit.
That's okay. That takes some time sometimes. But then there's also, some people who would just say, you got to push, grow, higher.
Yeah.
2 schools of thought. Actually, there's probably many more than that, but okay. So that's actually pretty crazy, and I don't even know how you would have done that and managed that. Were they all bank finance? Did you have private money in there?
So the first 3 we did bank financing, 20% down. The next 3 we did 100% private mortgages.
Okay.
And we actually did some promissory note loans as well for renovations.
Yeah.
And then the last one, which was a single family home, which we Airbnb, that was 20% down straight to the bank.
Okay.
All of the private mortgages we refinance, so everything's with the banks now.
Where did the renovation money come from for all those projects?
We had a little bit of cells on the HELOC available still, and then we used promissory notes, which was kind of a strategy to be able to.
So you probably had what, like $1 million plus out in P notes, or not quite that much?
No, probably in P notes around 350.
350.
It was quite, like when you look back and you think about it, you think, wow, what? Like, I obviously like taking a lot of risk, and so does my husband. But at one point, I think we had about 1.9 in total in like private lending. 1.9 million.
Yeah, like secured mortgages and stuff.
Yeah, secured mortgages and P notes. Yeah.
I think our mortgage on our camp payment right now is $23,000 a month.
Wow. Nice.
Oh man. Yeah, I try not to think about that kind of thing too much. With the P note stuff, yeah, that's it's a great avenue to get access to cash. But yeah, I take it very seriously, and I think we've had up to like $1 million out. Depends on in what capacity. Like even just like the flipping company I did in London, I think at one point we had over $1 million in cash out. Just really? It's an interesting feeling.
Yeah.
And I like the flexibility of it, like compared to doing mortgages where there's legal fees like crazy, lender fees like crazy, all this administration. P notes are just so clean. But they're very relationship based. Like people really gotta like you, trust you, which is my next lead-in question, because you went from 0 to 1,000. Where did you have the connections to get all this, and you had the knowledge about it? I guess that was from the many years of kind of watching from the sidelines and not really diving in.
In all honesty, no, because I wasn't really taking, like, I always used to, drive past the big apartment buildings and think, wow, like, who owns these? I'd love to kind of get in the same room as them. But I just started learning, and I didn't know much that there were any podcasts out there. I was literally just finding things out, figuring out how to run the numbers, getting on MLS and looking. We luckily found a really good realtor early on that helped us. And he recommended, a few different people. Yeah, but we kind of used a few different realtors to start with.
How did you find my podcast?
How did you find
my podcast, and when did you find it?
I didn't really start going on social media much until like it was like early 2021. And I was probably just on like Instagram, and somebody had shared your podcast.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, and I liked it because you did the numbers, and I'm a CPA and a numbers person as well. Yeah. So I'm like, somebody's actually explaining the numbers. So yeah.
I see. I still hear this all the time. I'm like, I don't know what I did that that people like so much. They think I'm a numbers guy. I think I'm a back of the napkin numbers guy, but
that's enough. That's all.
Yeah, like let's just make it. But I mean, I'll sit down with people who have crossed like every T, dotted every I, all the way through a project that they're just like looking at. And I actually think that's potentially a negative if you do that. The deals that you haven't even tied up and you're not sure about, because you get emotionally invested in it.
Yeah.
And now you have equity in that deal, and I mean like emotional equity. But it kind of makes you feel compelled to do the deal even if it's not great.
Yeah, totally.
And that's something investors got to watch out for. If you put too much time into a deal that you're just tentative about, it can make it harder not to do that deal.
It's like you're looking for ways to make it work.
You're looking for ways to make it work, right?
Totally,
you gotta watch out for that, because that can bite you.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that. I find that when I first started, like I didn't have as much knowledge at my fingertips, and there wasn't as many people telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing on social media. I found that like that, not having all that noise there, I was just kind of, let's go for it, let's do it. And I didn't have, like, I had such a good risk tolerance, and that's probably why we moved so quick. Yeah. And then as I got, looking at lots of different people and, doing probably a bit too much scrolling and whatever, and listening, I read way too many books. Like, people say, you should read lots of books and everything. I actually think that you should just focus on a handful and really put them into practice, because, like, too much information actually stops you, and it stops you moving forward. And we went through that a little bit last year, and we're just starting now to really learn that, you've kind of, you really have got to keep the information down a little bit. Otherwise it can just kind of get you into that analysis paralysis.
My information consumption now is talking to investors. Like I don't really consume podcast content anymore. I don't even listen to my own episodes. I just talk to people. We sit down and we talk, and I mastermind with people, and that's the content for me now. Like growing that way. But I do think like it would be great to like tune into a couple of Bigger Pockets episodes and like learn what's going on in the US and stuff. It's just I find myself trying to do that. I'm like, I'm not like dying to listen to this right now, so my mind's elsewhere. But that goes around and comes around, because like there was times where it was not the case, where I would like consume podcast content like crazy. But it's very topic oriented, as we were talking about off camera. It's like what you're interested in, what rabbit hole I'm going down right now. So I just follow that. I just trust my instincts with that stuff. Like, what do I want to know more about? Okay.
Yeah, me too. I definitely don't listen to, it's like at one point, like you said then, I was listening to podcasts when I had other things to think about. And instead of just giving myself, like going for a walk and giving myself that free time to think, it's like I wasn't giving myself any time to think and be creative. And that's...
like quiet time.
And that's usually when the ideas and everything came to me. And it took me about a year to realise what I was doing to myself, and that was burning me out even more.
Like once you have a certain level of knowledge and you just kind of got to quiet the noise, you evaluate opportunities, maybe run it by people who are good springboards for that kind of thing, and then take action. And it sounds like that's kind of where you guys are positioning yourself now. Of course you went and took action in a big way, but I almost feel like that was, you didn't even know what you were getting into.
I know.
To do that much all at once, like I don't hear anybody come on and just say that they did it all at once. Like a lot of people pick up steam and go faster and faster and faster, but you guys just like slapped it down there and did it.
To be fair, when we emigrated, we sold everything up in the UK. There were a lot going on then, and we came over here and like we're
so it's a personality thing. Like you guys are like burn it all down behind you and start the next thing.
Like, and it's like I was just talking to my mum, because my mum's over from the UK this week, and she just moved around a lot, and that's what her parents did. They just like, she'd get home from a weekend away and there'd be a note on the door saying, "No, we've moved here," and she'd be like, "Okay." And so I was brought up like that, and so I'm good for taking risks, and I'm not scared of hard work. So it didn't seem too daunting. And we did have a good team of contractors and handymen, and that's something that...
Why did you?
Because I enjoy finding people and making that relationship. Okay, so
you built that all up though, out of necessity though.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was all. That's one thing that we both enjoy doing. That will, and don't get me wrong, I've been ripped off by a few contractors, but I think the experience early on when I was younger kind of helped me understand that a little bit. But then going through the renovations, every few years in his homes, it had kind of taught us a lot about. Like we knew a lot about foundation issues and. When we first moved to Canada, we were on a septic and a well straight away. So there were a lot of things that we learned here. So we're never scared of renovations.
That's good. Yeah, and you do have to take some risks with contractors, I find, but you can definitely mitigate it. I'd say the worst thing that's happened to me with a contractor in the last 5 years was I had one place where I needed a roof done, and the guy that was supposed to do it, something came up, wasn't available. So I was just going through my phone. I'm like, who do I have that could come in and do a roof? And I called a number from a guy who I had called on previous projects, and he said, yeah, I could do that for you. And I had this vibe that he just didn't know what he was doing. And I forgot to mark it in my phone. So I'm just like, oh, hey, Mike, I got you on my phone here. I need a roof done. Are you able to help? Didn't realize it was this guy that I told, I felt like was not good enough. And sure enough, he came, used my shingles, installed them incorrectly. I had to rip them all off, throw them away. So I was out basically the materials. I never paid the guy, obviously. I asked him how he was going to make me whole on the shingles he wrecked, and he told me his lawyer would contact me. And I'm just like, you know what? Just move on and focus. Although I could probably have, taken him with the small claims. It's just like I've never gone down that road.
Yeah.
But it would be a useful tool.
Yeah.
But even better than that is just pick good people that you don't need to do that with.
Yeah, and you have got to go with your gut feeling. But I have done that before as well, and I've said to my husband, why are we making the same mistake again? Why didn't we make a note of this somewhere? So I've done exactly
so
that.
If you have somebody in your phone, the key thing is put do not call next to their name. I did that right after that experience. Yes, very, very money-saving note to add to your phone.
Yeah. We had a guy who he was such a lovely guy, and it was one of the first. Actually, no, it was the third unit that we were renovating, and the contractor that we've got now that we use, he was one potential, and my husband was like, "No, I think he's the guy," and I'm like, "No, my gut feeling's saying no," and my gut feeling was obviously wrong, and we went with the other guy. And bless the other guy, he was so nice. The kind of guy you'd want to go out and like have a beer and chicken wings with. But I felt like we were just paying him just to chat at the hardware store every day. And we run over budget on that one, and that was a bit of a learning. But hey.
Yeah, I find a lot of contractors are chatty. And you get, especially the ones you're paying hourly, they just love to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe if you're on if they're piecework or job quoted, man, they fly through those projects. Which is why they price that way, because it's an advantage to them. So, so it sounds like you have a very good, hold on these contractors. It's just such an interesting story that your comfort level with this, to just jump in like that. And it's kind of proving that no one really has an excuse. Like, we have our comfort zones, I find. Like, most people underestimate what they can do. They look at a situation and they, out of fear of just the amount of work it would be, they don't do it, which I respect, because, I have a kid that keeps me up all night, and I have very limited free time right now. So me taking on things that consume my time is it's not something I want to do. And you have a young kid as well.
Yeah,
so
4-year-old. Yeah.
So it's probably pretty hard to commit to new things, right?
I think I'm so glad actually that we did go quite fast then, because like I'm happy where we are now, or getting there. But it's definitely made me think a lot more on, the next project that we take on. It has to be, it's difficult in this market anyway, but it definitely has to be a lot more worthwhile. And, for the amount of work that goes into it.
Right. And you mentioned burnout. Like, I've told my story many times, but I slept in my house under renovation. I had morning dew on my face, no vapor barrier. I slept in my car. Like, I painted the house overnight for the cabinet people to come in the morning. Like, I did anything and everything to make my first reno project go. And I remember distinctly after that, I'm like, A, what now? And B, I'll never do that again. And I did still do one more where I was a bit hands-on, and then it was after that it was like, okay, no, my business partner and I at the time, we just decided, okay, we're gonna be oversight now. We're no longer working, we're now oversight. And transitioned away. But it kind of sours the idea of even working, taking on new projects when you remember the pain of that burnout. Yeah. It's like, no, I think in a good way, it causes you to delegate. It causes you to build your team.
Exactly, yeah.
And in maybe a negative way, it causes you to not take action.
And we've bought, we live an hour and a half away from his properties. And that's always a good thing.
Where do you live?
We live in Rockwood, just outside of Guelph.
Rockwood, okay. My mom used to live there.
Yeah.
So St. Mary's to Rockwood is an hour and a half?
An hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah. And then the other properties are in Alma, so same again.
Elmer?
Yeah.
Like south of Tillsonburg?
St. Thomas, London way, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's a long way.
Yeah, an hour and a half, to both of them.
Okay.
And then in between St. Mary's and Alma, it's actually only about 40 minutes, so.
Okay. I'm trying to place Elmer in my head. So is it east of Tillsonburg, closer to Kitchener?
No, it's literally 10 minutes from west of St. Thomas.
10 minutes west of St. Thomas. Oh, okay, yeah. So quite far.
East, not west.
East. Okay, so and you just ended up in these towns because that's where the deals were?
Yeah.
What were your parameters? What was a good deal to you?
I was just looking for duplexes that ideally had split utilities for one, and that
power and water.
Yeah.
That's not very
although
common.
we didn't really get the we didn't
Water's
get that.
Rarely separated unless it's semi-detached.
Yeah, we've only got water separated on one, and then that just needed renovations. And I mean, at the time, obviously, beginning of 2021, end of 2020, when we were looking, you could really see that, you could put new flooring and paint and everything, and, you could get a perfect burr, I guess. So luckily,
values were just going up so aggressively at the time.
And we didn't, not saying that we were naive. I've been through, I bought my first house in 99. So I've kind of been through the ups and downs of the market, and I understood that, interest rates are going to go up. So we knew all this. But luckily, like the one thing that we're always looking for is where can we add that little bit more value. So we're never looking at something where it was just a lipstick job. So like the first one, we knew that we could renovate the loft and make it like a 4-bedroom. It's quite a decent size. So and then the second one,
so was the loft finished, or was
no?
It was just unfinished.
It was unfinished. So we finished both sides.
Was it just trusses and you guys had to re-engineer it, or was it?
No,
it was already like a space.
It was already a space. It had the stairs going up, so it more or less just needed finishing. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second one that we bought, we knew it was a huge downstairs. That's the one that we literally cut in half and turned that into a triplex. Okay. That was a challenge because the town made us jump through hoops to get to that stage. So.
And that one was in Elmer, or
that one was in St. Mary's.
St. Mary's. I feel like St. Mary's would be harder to work with because it's like all heritage, and that's probably the main challenge.
Yeah, they were very strict with like the fire separation.
Yeah,
there was no stone left unturned on that one.
Way back in the day, I heard that they didn't allow Walmart to come into St. Mary's, or no, that was Stratford. No, St. Mary's isn't as much of heritage, although it is a quaint town as well.
Yeah. It's a beautiful town, really nice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really nice. I mean, I get on with all the town people there now. Now we've been through it all.
Yeah.
But when you start off and it was just like one expense after another, and I'm like, I just want to add another unit for somebody. It'll be really nice. There's no point having this. Like it was like 2 bathrooms and 4 bedrooms, and it was huge, and 2 big dens just on one level, and there was no tenant that was going to rent that amount of space, so it made sense.
So it made sense to split it up, but they didn't want you to. Why didn't they want you?
No, they was good with it. It was like, right, okay, we need a survey. We couldn't find a survey on file, so we had to pay for somebody to do a survey. Then it was like the cost of the application. I think that was about $4,000 before we even started. Then they told me that I could do the planning application myself. So like I got online, I kind of learned how everybody else was doing the planning justification letters, and I went through all that. I learned it all myself, and there was helping me with it and kind of teaching me. And then at the end, when I'd submitted the application, this was back in like November 2021, when we started the process in August 21. And then they decided that I needed to use a professional planner. Then I had to wait another couple of months for somebody good, which we have got somebody good now that we use. And then it had to go to the council committees, and you have to go through the whole process. Yeah. And eventually we got there.
Was it for a minor variance, or it was for a change of use? Like what?
It was for zoning as
change?
Well.
Zoning change,
and a couple of minor variances for the parking and
and it all got approved.
They all got approved. And like in the end, the council were like, they were great. They were like, oh, we know this house, and it totally makes sense, and they all like loved the idea because it's a kind of well-known house. It's on the main road. But yeah, it took nearly a year.
Yeah.
Just to get the approval.
And that whole time you had private money on it, or is that a bank?
Oh no, so luckily this was one that
with a bank.
It was cash flowing anyway.
So you were strategic about which ones would be private.
Yeah, the one that we're doing now, the church renovation to the fourplex. This was the 3rd property we bought, and we left this till the end, knowing that this would be the biggest project. But the fact that we've just got a mortgage with RBC, it was already the best cash flower anyway.
The church cash flow as well?
Yeah.
What is the church now? Is that already 4 units?
It's in the process of being 4 units.
Yeah. What is it right now to be rented out?
So each unit is 2,100 upstairs.
No, what I'm saying is, like you said, it's cash flowing. Already?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Does it have just 1 unit at the moment?
No, 2.
It's 2 at the moment, turning into 4. Okay, that's what I wanted. So it was a church. Somebody else changed it from church.
Yeah, we bought it as a duplex. Somebody had bought it as a church and converted it, and then we bought it before it was even rented out. Yeah, and then we got the rezoning done for the.
So it just looks like a church, like a big church, small church.
It's kind of like a chapel kind of thing.
Chapel.
We actually struggled to get a mortgage on it.
Well, I was just saying, like people would want to see that the change of use was done right. Banks probably would not love it because they won't lend on churches. Churches are like a no-go for banks because, I mean, who wants to evict people out of a church, and it's a single-purpose building?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, you're proving it's not single-purpose.
RBC don't mind.
They don't mind.
Yeah, they don't mind ones that look like churches, but Scotia
it can look like a church and not be a church. But if it is a church, that's where it gets challenging.
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't a church, but even Scotiabank was like, it looks like a church still. So
yes, looks like a church.
Peak is giving it away.
We aren't doing it.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Like even if you had proper like permits with the city to convert it.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether it'll be different now with it being a fourplex, but we're coming up to that. We're just working through the refinancing.
Oh, I'm sure you won't have an issue now with like a multiplex. Like the converted buildings are a big thing. Like that's a very popular type of rental product. So with that said, I mean, you could even go with credit unions and stuff like that for that. Is your plan to go commercial with that? Like more like a credit union approach, or are you trying to do residential?
We're trying to do residential.
Yeah, to get the 80% and the low rates.
Yeah, we really want to pull out as much as possible on this one. So we're going down the residential route first. I was thinking, do I just go straight to RBC? But I'm actually using a broker and we'll kind of go down that route. Because it's hard work sometimes, dealing direct with the bank.
Yeah, I don't like dealing, directly with my own matters in that regard either. Like I'd rather work through a broker, somebody to kind of like. Yeah, me too. I mean, it's different, or like somebody who works in the bank that kind of can rep your interests, where they're not just going to disclose everything to the underwriter.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, can you rephrase this to the underwriter in a way that looks good on me?
That's it, because I'm just too honest. I just want to give you all the information.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you. I'm just going to tell you. I ain't going to sugarcoat it. Well, I'll pitch it in the best possible light, but I mean, I'm going to tell you all the goods. So, and I've been fortunate. I've had some good contacts for that. But it's definitely something I appreciate. Some people, they don't care. And it is good. I mean, especially from a commercial standpoint, if you're doing a lot of commercial mortgages, they're doing annual reviews on you anyway. It's good to just make the connection with them and just pull that Band-Aid off and just be upfront. It still is good to know like what not to say, but I mean, that comes with experience.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll leave it to the broker.
And leave it to the broker,
I think we could do a commercial mortgage. I got told we could do a commercial mortgage on this one because the numbers make sense. So it might end up being better. If you combine it
in with others, I think their minimum is $5 for commercial, right? So if you combine it with one more of your properties, then you could do it with like an RBC or something.
Right.
Or maybe they'll make an exception and help you out at 4.
Yeah, I heard that RBC might at 4, but to be honest, it sounds like I was only talking to him the other day. It sounds like we should be good for residential. So yeah,
that'd be awesome. Now, typically brokers, as far as like A lenders go and institutionals like Scotiabank and TD are the ones that they have direct access to, whereas they don't have access to RBC BMO. I think they can do National Bank. So there is like a little bit less in the terms of options. But I mean, that's one of those things where sometimes these guys have a contact in those banks anyway. They just got to charge you a fee to place it there.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind. So we were talking about what's a good deal. You were looking for perfect BRRRRs. You were probably looking for stuff that would cash flow when you were done. Yeah. Especially in smaller towns like that, it's easier to accomplish that.
Yeah.
So now
which a year ago it was doing.
A year ago, not now?
Well, everything, we've got one property that's not cash flowing.
Why? Because of the you were on rates. Variable rates?
Yep. Yeah. And then a couple of them, they're cash flowing, but we've eaten into the maintenance and repair amount that we put to one side.
Yeah, the rates, they'll get you.
Yep.
Sorry, my son just keeps me awake at night. I hate yawning in the afternoon interviews, but it's like evening for me.
I get it. I've been there.
Yeah, you're not there anymore. Okay, so there's hope.
Yeah, there's hope. Yeah.
There's got to be hope, but I'm sorry, I lose my train of thought as I yawn. What were we talking about?
You've lost me now.
I lost you. Oh, dang. This never happens. Anyways, well, we were going through your mortgage approach.
Yeah.
And then you were what you were looking for. So you said you were looking for cash flow. The variable rates affected things on you. So back then, like when you started or when you were kind of in the heat of this and refinancing them, you were still having options on like 3% or less mortgage rates.
Yeah, we got some really good mortgage. Like the majority of our refinancing we did before May 2022. There was one property that was there's always one troublesome property. So that one, we kept it on the private mortgage way too long. We were trying to get the upstairs tenants out and we had a lot of issues with them. We was waiting for a hearing for nearly a year and they didn't end up moving out.
They weren't paying?
They were paying. There was causing issues. So it was like a bad behaviour. I can't remember which.
Yeah,
which
so you're
form
trying to
it
get
is
them
now.
out. Yeah, I forget which form that is.
So we had a property manager at the time who kind of dealt with that. But yeah, that was our troublesome one. So we had that for nearly a year. And then when we got that appraised, it was literally just kind of when everybody was panicking and the downturn. I think it was like end of August last year. So yeah, that one didn't go as well. But we're just like, whatever. Just we'd left some money in the deal on that just to get it off the private mortgage.
I know a guy who lost on 3 flips. He had like 3 or 4 flips going on at the time, and like they lost significant money. He said he's going to come on the podcast and talk about it. He has not yet followed up with me, so I'm not going to share his name. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear those sides of the story, because I don't like it when it's everybody just says things are all peachy and great, because there are those stories out there too.
Yeah, you've got to
people do lose on deals, and they don't like talking about it. You don't want to dwell on it, but it's good to learn from those things. And I know there were people before this happened here in Ontario, like I interviewed people in Alberta, and they were talking, hey, you think it's all sun and rainbows there? One day it can happen. Well, sure enough, it did. And to me, it looks like there's signs that we're at the bottom of that cycle, and things are starting to rebound. I mean, objectively, there has been some positive growth in property values now. But then they just hike the rates again. So who knows if it was going to be a blip and then it's going to continue down. It's possible. It's hard, as I've said a million times, hard to know where we land with so many people immigrating here. Such a need for housing, and you have the other side of it is interest rates driving down demand for housing because it's sucking up the dollars.
Yeah, totally. It's a tough one to kind of.
It's tough to know in Ontario, and this is where it makes it hard, because I used to do deals like my prime of student rental, like flips and brrrrs. I was buying houses around 200 grand, putting 200 grand into them and having them worth like 550, 600. It was like, to me, that was awesome. Like I had very little like capital extended. I could cash flow these properties on full private money borrowed at the end, rent it out. Like it was just a great circumstance. I felt like I was covered 3 ways. And now it's a lot harder to put a deal like that together where you could cash flow if you had to rent it. It's not as easy in Ontario as it used to be. And I'm not saying you can't do it. It's just not as easy as it was.
Yeah, you've got to be a lot more creative. And because that's where we started. Like maybe not finding something at 200, but we could definitely easily just like buy something, put the reno money in, and we had a few like perfect brrrrs. But then the others sucked that up and we left money in. So they were like kind of learning from both ways. But starting off when we did, we benefited from that market. But now, like even like before we kind of came on, we were just talking about, going down different rabbit holes and, the shiny object syndrome. And, 1 minute I'm like, right, okay, we're going to do flips. And then, you listen to the news and something comes out and you're like, should we be doing flips?
See, to me, I think you got to focus on a market with good fundamentals, and that's where my head's at, and that's why I chose like Florida as something that makes sense. Doing the hospitality stuff, where we have commercial property where we can add and we can change and we can develop, and there's more plays. But if you're gonna flip, I think it makes more sense to try and flip in markets where if you couldn't sell it, you could rent it and still be okay. That's it's a way more covered approach. And I actually just interviewed a guy who lends private mortgages to flippers and like people who do brrrrs. Like that's it, like investors. And he's like, yeah, our average loan in Ontario is 550. Look, clearly people are doing lower price properties that can be turned over, and if you're in those price ranges, they can probably rent and break even or come close to cash flowing, maybe lose a little.
Could put it on like a medium-term rental and stuff.
There's an angle where you could make it make money, even if it's not perfect. So with that said, I mean, I know you're open to moving around. If you did move around, what do you do with all the properties here? Keep them?
I've not really thought about that next step, to be honest, too much.
You can hire a property manager.
We did have a property manager. That's the one thing, like coming from the UK and having that house for like 13 years. We actually sold it when I got pregnant and emotional. I'm like, right, that's it, get rid of it now. But we shouldn't have sold it. We should have refinanced it and renovated again. But that was the one thing we said, we definitely having a property manager. And it's quite funny now because we did have a property manager for the majority of the time, but then late last year we decided to do it ourselves. And we opened his own property management corp and like doing it ourselves instead. So yeah, it's we'd probably go back to that.
To having a manager?
Yeah.
I lean towards what I often refer to as insourcing. Just bring the people into your sphere that will basically manage it for you, like good software, good team. Hopefully you have an assistant that, and that actually can kind of double. Like you can hire an assistant if you have enough doors. They can manage all the calls, all the dispatch, the maintenance people, and everything. And then you kind of have your own internal management.
Yeah.
That's kind of my like sweet spot for going forward.
That was our idea with opening his own property management, and kind of getting somebody that we can train and have that we trust, kind of like in house. So
because no one will ever care as much about your properties as you do. So it's nice to be able to still have your finger on the pulse, even if you're not there and you're not directly managing them. You kind of it's under one roof. Yeah. That's my thought. One sec. So tell me about the professional life. So you're a CPA or
CMA.
CMA?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you filing people's corporate returns and taxes?
No. So I'm from the the retail industry. So more like financial planning analysis. You
do financial planning and analysis? Okay. Yeah. So are you like selling equity investments to people? And
no, working for like one of the big retail. Well, I was working for one of the top retailers.
Oh, a top retailer in Canada. Okay. Doing analysis for that.
But I work for a UK company now. Okay. And now we do like consulting for the top US company.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So are you like having to file UK tax returns working for the UK company?
No.
They have a Canadian setup?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. And consulting for the US. Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of
nice. So that could help you get a foot in the door if they wanted to help you get in the US. Into the US. Definitely. You could potentially use that.
Yeah.
Yeah, my buddy who flips properties in Houston, his wife got relocated from Calgary down to Houston, so that was his foot in the door. They got visas and green cards, and I think they're working on green cards now. So it's nice if you have an angle on that.
Yeah, it is. Down there. It's just the place where they'd want us to go. I'm unsure. We could have that option.
Where would it be? Do you know?
If I say it's kind of like really obvious.
You don't want to say it?
Company it is, yeah.
So okay, don't say it.
I'll tell you after.
Don't say it. Yeah, no. It's funny. I do give people and it usually does not happen, but I'm like, if you say something you really didn't want to say on the podcast, we can just cut it out.
Well, I can say it if you're going to cut it out.
No. Don't say it. Don't say it. I'll ask you off camera. I don't want to create work for Epic. Okay. Okay. So you're doing that. What does your husband do?
He manages warehouses and distribution centers. So that's another. So he's really interested in the industrial side of real estate.
Okay.
Because he specializes in starting up distribution centers. So he usually gets hired by companies that have, just like kind of started off from greenfield, and he'll help it get it up and running, get all the stuff in place.
Like, does he help with the development, or they handle that? And
not really the development, but he's kind of been part of it. Just where, like, when they're building, just to make sure everything's in the right place and whatever, and then he runs them. So he's done that all his life. So yeah, that's something that he's interested in.
Right.
Which we just kind of, I feel like we were trying to get to a place where, well, let's get the cash flow working. So maybe I could leave work, and we could focus on that a little bit more. And then we toyed with the idea, thinking, okay, should he leave work and then he can concentrate on the consulting side of that, while we start, thinking about how do we move on to the industrial side of real estate. So we're just kind of working through that at the minute still. But he definitely wants to go into consulting on the warehouse side. So it could be a nice combination.
Yeah, if he can retain the clients and just kind of go direct.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. I mean, the challenge, and I hear people talk about it, like for most people, you're not going to be able to pull like a Kellen Panicha and go just retire because your rental properties pay for everything. Like there are times, or there was a time, and there are many places that would have worked, but for most people you're going to end up doing something active. You're going to end up either you're a wholesaler as that industry sort of picks back up, or you're a realtor, appraiser, or something. You're doing something in the industry. It might be entrepreneurial, but that kind of gives you that ability to grow and be active. And plus, who wants to sit around and do nothing anyway?
Yeah, exactly.
I've got many different entrepreneurial things I do within the real estate space. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming, but it kind of just forces me to grow. And that's, like I said, I wouldn't want to be sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah. And I think like my aim is to go part-time at the end of this year.
Okay.
And then at least I can keep going.
More time to focus on your portfolio. Because like
Yeah.
you said, you're kind of burnt out. So I'm sure when you look at doing another project right now, it's probably not as appealing as it might have been.
It's funny how you were saying earlier, you kind of think, oh God, it's too much. But as soon as you finish one project, you're like, oh, we need a break. And then it's like 2 days. Okay, next. You're looking for the next one.
For me, I always wanted to have, I felt weird not to have a project going. I'd always be trying to line them up. As soon as this one's done, I need another one that's starting, like whether it's a property already in my portfolio that I'm going to renovate, or whether it's a flip or a BRRRR or whatever. It feels weird not to have something going on.
That's the same. We've always had something going on. And even now, like we've got the church renovations, we're just in the middle of that now. But we are looking for the next project.
Yeah. And what kind of criteria do you have set out for the next project?
So we do want to do some flips. That's kind of what
So that's where you're at now.
Yeah,
okay, flip.
That's what we're targeting at the minute.
Yeah. And if you're basically looking for the same thing you'd look for in a BRRRR, right? It's like numbers should work. There should be a margin in there when you're done.
Yeah.
And I feel like now is kind of a time where you have the ability to negotiate a better deal. The market's not as hot as it was. It's picking back up, right? So have you seen anything that interests you? How close are you guys to making a move?
So we've seen a couple that would be flip worthy. Then, like saying that, this week I've been analysing a sixplex with some commercial space. So that's the other thing. Like other things come like on your plate. You're like, okay, I'll take a look at this.
Sure.
And then you've got to be careful, like you said, that you don't get too invested in it. Otherwise, you're trying to make it work. But and then we're looking at a couple that could be like good medium-term rentals as well. So I'm really trying to focus. But
well, if you're trying to potentially quit your job, you're going to want something that brings in a good bit of active income. Yeah. So that you replace the active income you have now, right? Yeah. So flipping makes sense for that.
Yeah.
But it's
I think I'd enjoy flipping. So
it's a little painful to sell the property sometimes. Although I just sold one of the new builds in Florida, and I don't mind. But I was not emotionally connected to it in any way. The second one, I was like intending to maybe keep as an Airbnb, maybe use it when I went down. I'm like a little sad to see that one is going to sell. But again, don't get too emotionally connected to it. And I find because I'm not building them myself, I don't get as emotionally connected to them because I'm not the GC. I'm not pulling every string. It feels way better. Like it's just way better. Like you don't mind parting with them. Yeah. Whereas like the ones I put my blood, sweat, and tears, I'm like, it's hard to just like get rid of them.
If there's money coming in from the sale of it, then I'm good. Nice. I'm not emotional.
Yeah, the money's nice too. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Okay, so where do we send people if they want to follow you?
On Instagram, we are SPS Investments.
SPS?
Yes.
Investments.
And then I'm just on Facebook as well. It's Amy Brooke.
Amy Brooke. Okay.
I opened my Facebook out to the world.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, that was hard. But anyway.
Interesting. I have probably about 1,000 friend requests that I mean, there's just a giant list there. I'm never on Facebook really, other than our group for the meetup.
Yeah.
I don't really go on there much.
I find that that's the best place to find like investors.
On Facebook?
Yeah.
You're probably right because it is an older demographic more likely to have money as well. And I mean, I feel like Instagram's a weird place. Again, I'm in my bubble all the time. I'm like around real estate investors, talking to real estate investors, not realizing that there's a whole world of people who troll over a million different things, as I'm realizing and noticing lately as I put out more shorts. So I could see how Facebook could be better.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that you've known for years that, you know, you don't realize that they're frustrated and they've not got any savings for retirement or whatever, and you could really help them. So
and they may have, you know, some HELOC that they want to lend to you. Yeah,
we've got a few kind of private promissory notes out at the minute, and a couple of people did actually want to do joint ventures, but it was just challenging to get qualified at the minute. So you know, and that's all been through Facebook.
That's interesting. So are you putting like outward kind of like hey, I'm looking onto Facebook?
No, I'm really.
Or people are just reaching out to you and asking if they can get involved?
Yeah. I'll kind of say, I do put a little bit out there and say, let me know if you want to chat.
Yeah.
But I'll not openly.
Yeah, you got to be a little careful with that. Yeah, you don't want to get any calls from certain organization.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Might have to go to Florida sooner than you think. So. Anyways, okay, so people know where to reach you. Anything you wish we'd talked about that we haven't covered?
I think we've done quite well there.
Yeah. Casual conversation as I yawn, and I don't mean to direct that at you.
Oh, no worries, no.
Yeah.
Maybe the garden suite. That was the only, when we were talking about the refinancing, that was the only thing. We ended up doing the garden suite conversion. Like, that property actually got appraised at 800,000 as a duplex and a big garage workshop at the time. And so when we did that garden suite conversion, we finished it in February time. I feel like we were one of the first ones to do it, and the appraiser didn't recognize it.
Yeah, appraiser wasn't used to seeing it.
And so and
the bank wouldn't recognize it.
Well, we went to CIBC and we just kind of stopped there because that's where his mortgage was. But we knew that we were taking the risk, being probably one of the first people to do it, that it might not be recognized. So we've not actually refinanced that one.
I bet you there's a boatload of lenders that will help you out.
Now,
of course, now rates
we just thought we'll enjoy the cash flow instead and sink the money into it. It wasn't too much because it was already set up with the.
If you don't need the cash flow, then that's awesome. But yeah, the thing I find is just because it's a no with one lender doesn't mean it's a no with another. We got an approval for an institutional mortgage with our camp based on projected income, not based on what we'd actually done, because we didn't even have a full season of financials to show. Our first year's financial statements, unaudited statements, we send them in, and they projected out what we could do in future years, and they gave us an approval. We haven't closed it yet.
That's amazing.
I'm wow, I was not expecting that. I would not have thought that would work. So pleasantly surprised.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's doable. Granted, I think we're gonna smash the projections that they came up with, because we've added so much to our camp, but that's a different combo for a different day. Anyways, okay, well, I appreciate you coming over and having a chat.
Thanks for having me.
And let's see you at the meetup on, it'll be just past when your episode airs, but hope to see you out there.
Yeah.
All right, talk soon.
Thank you.
There are a lot of people out there talking about the infinite banking strategy and whether or not it makes sense for them. To find out what it's all about and if it's a fit for you, visit controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines, where my audience can gain exclusive access to books, podcasts, and webinars tailor-made for real estate investors.